Hello, I'm Gary Quinn. Welcome to another episode of Ready, Set, Live. My guest today is a creative visionary. She started as the Vice President of Development at E! Entertainment. She went on to create her big company, production company of television, the T Group, and now she's the President of Critical Content, my friend, Jenny Daly. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi, great to see you, Gary. So fun. It's been a while. I miss you, and life is crazy with all of our, reimagining how we operate with COVID. So.
Exactly. Jenny, during this lockdown situation, I know everything has changed, television's changed, family dynamics changed. What was the biggest shift for you, or that you felt, oh my God, I have to look at this more closely now in my life?
With COVID, it's been honestly for me, as I started my business when my company, T Group, when I was literally 6 months pregnant, or a little less, maybe 4 months pregnant, and had my son in the first year, my first son. I have two boys. And starting a company when you're pregnant and then rolling right through that. And I had baby number 2 4 years later while deep in production, and I sitting on a ball, bouncing them on the bouncy ball while I'm trying to get an edit, to a place that works. It's like, I have to say, during COVID, I like to tell people I'm a stay-home mom for the first time in my life, which I kind of love. I really appreciated being at home, able to day with my kids and engaging in a way that I've never been able to on it. I've always made family a priority, though. As a woman in our industry, it's interesting because, you are needing to be on the front lines when it comes to production and assuring your success, and really, especially owning your own company, you're on 24/7. But for me, family has always been a big priority, that I would, almost like turn myself off at 6:30 and make sure I'd come home like every night to have dinner, pretty much with, I want to say every, but most every night, have dinner, kids, bath, bed, and then check back in at like 9 o'clock and, get everything kind of that I needed to attend to. But with COVID, it's been a game changer, being able, my kids can run in the door in the middle of the day. We can have lunch, we have breakfast in the morning, we have dinner. It's been nice.
It's actually a blessing, because I think for kids to spend time with their mom, because you've been busy, but yes, you do make time. But I think it's something that really is a blessing for children right now, that they really get to connect to their parents. And I know your husband he's a super dad. I mean, the team that you have at home is incredible. When you have birthdays, and I always see all the posts that you do, it's very family oriented. That's what I've loved about you, that you've been able to. And I think for women, that this is a brand that you can be successful, and you can also have a family, and you can also be conscious about the needs of everybody. And the main thing is that Jenny has to take care of herself too. Have you found that during COVID, you've been able to take better care of yourself?
The nice thing is I can be like, I'm going to go for a run right now, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I recently started actually this thing. We have a trampoline. I'm like 10 minutes a day. I'm going to run. I'm going to jump on the trampoline and do all these different exercises. It's been a week, so let me be honest. And it's been actually really fun. So as far as taking care of myself, yeah, I guess I have more time, in the sense of in the day, to maneuver that. So it's been nice. I think when it comes down to, like, family, again, it's always a priority. So it's kind of always making sure where my kids are at, making sure, like, where the family's needs are. So I can't say I've always been priority number one, me. In the sense of, I'd say, physically, or aesthetically, aesthetically, as you see me, yes, I've got it together. But I think as a woman in this world, in any world where you're, kind of really focused on being, everything, mom, being a mom, it's you want to be everything there too. So it's kind of just a balance that you really have to, figure out how best works for you.
And being a woman in the entertainment business, I know sometimes that the business, looks at successful women as being this other person. And have you found that you are able, because I've been in the room with you when you've been able to, you have this creative like light that can turn on, but sometimes I would say sometimes men in the industry, they probably sometimes feel threatened if they maybe know your background. Have you ever encountered that, or how do you maneuver around that?
It's interesting in the whole sense of men and how to operate in our business. As a woman who I own, sole proprietor of my company with T Group, I have to be honest, I never really experienced having the kind of voice of working through with multiple men, kind of engaging on their opinions or thoughts or direction as to where and what should be done. Because I was used to running my own company. I've really experienced that more in my recent engaging with critical content where they acquired my company, because it's I have a lot of male as far as energy there and partners and engagements that I've had to really work on being in how I operate in that world. It's been interesting. When I owned my own company as a woman, I noticed with different networks and how you operate, a man can be much more, I'd say, forward and kind of direct about their needs, whereas a woman has to be a little bit more strategic in expression and desire of how I want to achieve it. Because that whole cliche of being she's aggressive, which is a terrible word for a woman. It's yeah, but for a man, he's passionate. It's interesting. There's a definite I'd say difference in how women and men are treated in our industry, and not probably anyone. Let's just be honest, but I can speak for mine with the entertainment. It just was always ensuring how I would be successful by where and like what exactly I did to express my needs. And it was thoughtful. It had to be thoughtful. And
Yes.
now working with men, I do notice that how, the need for the room to be filled with kind of their voice is one that I've never had to work so hard to ensure that mine is heard. It's been interesting and humbling in some ways because I'm like, wow, this is what it's like.
What do you think your strongest trait is?
I think honest. I'm very straightforward. I think for me, I've always been very, I think, direct about what I believe in and what my approach is and what my kind of directive is, if you will. I'm not one to. I think our industry is full of the, kind of cliche of shallowness and there's a lot of manipulating the situations, and it's true, it happens. It's a very calculated business, and I try my best to be clear about my intentions and motives and I'd say kind of conversations to ensure that people know that I'm not one that is basically manipulating the situation to my advantage not inappropriate, but in a misleading way. I
But
just
you know
think
what I
honesty is
found,
the best
Jenny, is
policy.
I've been working with a lot of corporate companies, and the new book that I just finished is called How to Be Your Own Business Guru, because I found that the people working together, whether it's a CEO, a vice president, a manager, head of, a part of their development team, that if they're not being authentic, it's a different energy. And I think the key is to bring your authentic self to the workplace. And that's what's missing, because sometimes people put it in a compartment. I'm this person at home, but then I'm this person at the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the
Yeah.
key is to bring it together. And I'm sure that's where your success is, because I've seen you in action even when there's male and female, young or old in the room, I would say your trait is you're really a chameleon to know how to, let's say, get the job done and be a team player. And that's so rare in a CEO, I tell you, because you're not operating out of ego. And that is so refreshing. And I've always loved that about you. And I think that's where your success lies. And when you sell an idea that you love, how do you get your team enthused about it or on board?
I'm actually collaborative with my team from the beginning. I don't just I don't arbitrarily say I'm doing this idea unless there's a really strong reason that I am behind it. Most always my team will be a part of that process and decision making as to what we're going to pursue. So it's very rare that I'll have a project that my team isn't behind. So because it is a team effort, it takes everything. I mean, I'm running a company. I can't be the one to ensure that the writing is behind it all the way, or that the crafting of it. Like, I have to be looking at that after they've taken it on and really brought it into life in a way that they're behind it. So I'd say most all our projects are always one that the team believes in, and then obviously I'm navigating the kind of creative directive in order to ensure success at the locations we go. But meaning to sell it. But I really have a team that's passionate and loves what we do.
Jenny, what do you think the future of television is?
Interesting. Like, as in cable landscape?
Yeah.
So linear television, like ABC, NBC, and all
well,
the
networks, but also because there's so many outlets these days. Um, it can be a bit overwhelming for people, but it's great for content.
Well, yeah, no, content, I'm grateful to be a content creator and producer and provider, because you can take it anywhere now, really, truly. But the way that television is changing is obviously everything is streaming. I mean, my kids are 8 and 12, and they don't know what it means to wait to watch something. They just don't. It's like instant gratification. Oh, I want to watch this. I turn it on here. I go to Netflix. I make sure. So it's an interesting world that we live in. So with that, knowing you're seeing Discovery turn to D plus, you're Discovery Plus, you're seeing Disney, ABC, you have Disney Plus, you have HBO Max, you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have everything's going streaming. No longer will you be working on a clock any longer, meaning television served a purpose because you had to fill 24 hours in a day. You don't need to do that any longer. So everything is going to be consolidated into streamers. And you'll, like, cable, where you could pick up, do you want to buy HBO or Showtime as premium packages? Now you're going to just be paying per, streamer, if you will. And some will consolidate and bundle, like obviously now you have, Comcast, who owns a conglomerate of all these. You have Viacom, who owns a, conglomerate of these. It's just everybody is consolidating under one arm. Yeah. So it's really going to be a matter of everything turning streaming.
It's like everything is a plus. I mean, this show even is on Apple Plus. It's on Roku. It's on Amazon Music now. All these outlets just continue to create opportunities. That being said, back to the authentic self, what does love mean to Jenny?
Love. Love, there's so many different degrees of love. I think of the love I have for my kids, and it's just like, it's almost to the core of your being. You look at your kids and you're just like, I just love you so much. And that, like, it's almost like it's in your veins, in your blood, in your gut, in your heart. Your love for my husband, in that sense is there's obviously a different type of emotional connection when it comes to love. And it's one that, for me, I very much feel love when I'm connected, when I have a sense of, a bonding like that. I think for women, we care more when we literally sit down and have a good night talking and expressing things together and talking about, like, that feels the connection of love, which brings to intimacy, which, and sexual. But like love really is that bonding of a partner that you feel you can just connect with. And then love, when it comes to passion about my world of what I do in work, is a different type of love of what gives me inspiration and makes me feel that I have this layer, this connectivity to something that drives me and makes me feel that sense of excitement when I engage, and that's a different type of love. They're very different for me.
When you were growing up as a young girl, did you imagine you would be doing something like this?
Well, I've always been somebody who's been in the creative world, I guess if you say. Like I was always dancing and singing and making up shows and creating. I remember making gadgets. I would like go around the neighborhood and make, all these different things. So I think I didn't imagine this. It's funny because I never said I'm going to be this. But it's like in life, I guess I've been somebody who just has chosen to allow opportunity to lead me versus being fearful of the unknown. I moved all my life growing up, and not because I was an Army brat, just because I had a father and a mother who both were in the medical industry and shifted as they progressed. My mom actually became a doctor later in life, and I was a senior or sophomore in high school. So we moved a lot. So my need to adapt and change and kind of not be beholden or hold on to one place. I'd always have to move to the next. I think it kind of it brought me to who I am in the sense of somebody who is comfortable with change and comfortable with going, all right, let's jump. And it's allowed me, I think, to be the person I am and take on the things that I've done. But it wasn't an intentional, like, I want to own my own company. It worked out because of the situation I was in, and that company couldn't afford to stay open. And I said, I'll take over. Let's just become partners. So that's with T Group, and we became 50-50 partners. And then eventually I took over the whole company, just based on, process and where the kind of, business led it to be. So it's been one of those. I'd say I'm one to say yes versus no, and one to bank on myself in the end and say, I know I can do it. I feel grateful that I'm my biggest, I'd say, when I compete with myself. I'm not really one that's competitive with, say, other women. I don't look at that. I always say, what can I do to be better? What can I do to be more successful? I drive a lot of that.
Wow. And I can totally relate to that because I grew up as an Army brat too. And every 16 months, it was time to move. But I found that I had to go into a new opportunity, a new school, new friends. And so we adapt easily. And I think that's part of the training, that you can go in a room and adapt to anybody. And that's what we did since we were kids.
Yeah.
What do you think is your greatest challenge that you overcame?
Greatest challenge. Gosh, I don't know. I feel like I've had a lot of challenges, I guess, if you will, in the sense of how, with family or business. Are you talking about
Either one. Mostly probably family, because that's what's really what it's all about.
It's been one of those situations, I think, for me where I feel like I've kept my family is always priority for me. So I think every life experience we've gone through, like I've had, situations where my parents divorced when I was 21, older in life. So that was a hard adjustment to have a family that, was very strongly embedded in a foundation of this is who you are versus then now who am I and what does that family construct mean? And with that, having a dad that really kind of went in another direction and started a new family. And that was kind of hard to, figure out where that connection continued, and that as a young woman kind of seeking that kind of advice in a dad, I lost that, and that strength in a family, and trying to, ensure the success of, what we did have. So I would just say, I think with me, I have just, uh, you know, moved forward always in the sense when there's been adversity, and just ensured that my I'd say strength was in knowing that it was all going to be okay. I think that's kind of always how I look at it, that this too shall work out,
Hmm.
and not one that I'm being flippant about it or without an emotional connectivity. But I always I'm not one to dwell in the kind of pain of something or the sadness. I'm one to look at, like, how can I how can I move through this and forward in order to be successful. So that's really kind of how I've really taken on life.
Um, who has been your biggest influencer in life? Who has been someone you admire or you say, I would love to have that career?
It's funny. I've again, I've not been that type of person to say I want to be that person. I've kind of driven what makes me feel um, satisfied or feel like I've had success, and I don't think that's ever going to be accomplished because I'm constantly always saying I want more, I want to feel like I've done this. I'm not one to kind of feel like a complacent. Um, but I do have a close friend of mine who I really turn to in our business, who I value his opinion, Paul Buccieri, who's somebody who has been one of my, and we have a joke. He's like, I tell him he's my best guy friend. And he's like, I'm not your best friend, I'm your best guy friend. I'm like, yes, you're my best guy friend. But now lately, I recently told him he's like one of my best friends, and he was really happy that he wasn't considered just a guy and a friend. But he's been a great advocate and somebody who I really see. I seek his advice because he's been through a lot as well, and what he's accomplished. I value his opinion, so I would say he's somebody who I'd look to say help in my process of trying to figure out where to go, or directions to kind of continue in.
That's great. No, I always think mentors are very important. And I used to coach Paul Jackson, who actually hired Paul Buccieri, because
Yeah.
I heard about Paul. I'm going to hire this guy. What do you think? And I remember before Paul went back to England, but I think everybody should have someone who inspires them. Is there any fears that you might have, Jenny?
Um, yeah, I always fear about ensuring, honestly, when it comes the success for my family. It really is. It's like everything I think I drive towards is to make sure that I give my children and my family security, and my fear, I think, it's funny because fear, I don't work out of fear often. I think I work out of I just want to feel like I'm moving forward. I think a fear is feeling like I'm not progressing, that I'm not growing, and I think lately, in again, it's like I had my own business for so long, and then coming in and merging and becoming president of another company, and that's been my biggest. I think this has been my most emotional time of identifying who am I, because I was very clear of who I was in owning my own company, and the identity when you come in and you merge with another and you have multiple voices that are a part of that. That's been my biggest, like, how who exactly am I, and what drives me, and what do I feel that, am I moving forward, or am I, you know, taking a step back? And I think that's where you really have to surge and push yourself in directions to ensure that. Or that's where I think fear comes in for me, is that I'm not moving myself in a direction that's going to be successful for my growth and successful for my family.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to embark on the entertainment world, and they can be a male or female, What would be the main advice you would say to them?
Um, I think for a young person starting out in our business, it's always, just really be strategic about aligning yourself with somebody who you feel has a, 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 a creative voice that speaks to what you would love to be doing. Look at people who are creating content that say, I love this, or these are the things I want, and then try and align yourself with them in getting involved in their company or working, somehow in production that speaks to that. It's just always driving towards, I think, what you are feeling is your personal intrigue versus going down a path of I'll just start here and hopefully I'll end here. Not to say you can't, because our business is definitely mobile, but our business is one that you just need to get your foot in the door, and you need to then have the ability to say. I think my biggest thing is always figure out a way. Production, our industry is always a means to say, how can I make it work versus no, this isn't going to happen, or no, this won't work, because you're going to get that all the time. I can't tell you how many no's I get, or this didn't work out, or we're not going to move forward. And I go, how can I make it work?
Correct.
Okay, there's a rock, there's a wall right here. How can I get over it? How can I get around it? How can I get under it? How can I, break it down and rebuild it? It's just, that's been my biggest, I think, desire or need. What I look in people I hire is people that are yes. And it's like, that is very simplistic, but in the just say yes, it really is. It's like, yes, and how. It's like, I can, and how can I make it work? And I think tenacity is a massive part, and resourcefulness. Being resourceful and being, and really driving is the key to success in our business.
Yep. On your wish list, who would you love to work with, or you would say, Gary, I would love to work with this person?
Who would I love to work with? I feel like as I'm getting, older in our business, like I'd love to work with, I think, projects that have an end goal of giving and actually allowing other people's success who aren't capable of having it. Like looking at children who are suffering, looking at, situations where there doesn't seem to be a lot of hope and a lot of opportunity. I would love to align with people who are similar in saying, I want to do good, and I want to figure out, not do good, but I want to actually make a vehicle of a voice that can help make something change. So I can't pinpoint an individual necessarily, but I can tell you that's the arena. And there's so many amazing women who are, forging paths like that, thinking, who are speaking out for those who don't have a voice. And because of my career, I've been less capable of following passion projects, I guess, if you will, or knowing that I've been driving business. And not to say that I don't do shows that matter. Like I did a show about deportation in the United States with Rosario Dawson that I'm very proud of, that really gave a voice to what was happening in the United States and with these families who are going through being deported over situations where they didn't dot an I or cross a T. It's so disheartening and just terrifying for these families.
Do you have, Jenny? Do you have any shows that are developed that you can speak about, or it's let's wait and see until it comes out, or is there something, a project you can say, oh, I have this coming out?
Well, I just had a series come out called Ginny and Georgia, a scripted series on Netflix that I think that what I think is really working for it is it does speak to a lot of, I think, issues that are going on with teens and angst in relationships with parents and children. So I think there's the connectivity on that. I think projects that I'm passionate about that are coming out right now. There is a scripted series about that I'm packaging right now. Called Things That My Mother and I Don't Talk About. That I'm excited to put that one together because they're true stories of women and their relationships with their moms, and obviously the kind of invisible walls that don't allow us to have that true, I think, connection that all of us long for. So I am excited about that project.
Well, I want to thank you, Jenny, for spending this time with me. You've always been an inspiration, and I think you have inspired people around the world with your work, your family, and I wish you great success. And I can't wait to see you in person. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks, Gary. You are amazing. I've always loved working with you. Oh, there's my dog. And your energy. All right, let me get this dog out. Oh, there he goes. Okay. And your energy is just infectious. So I appreciate you having me on. I really do. It's been really fun.
Great. Thank you. Until next time, I'm Gary Quinn. Join me for another episode of Ready, Set, Live. Stay close.